Another 5-minute video this week. I took some more time off of work and made a lot more progress. This is me final sizing the number 19 holes for the tank attachment screws later, and then taking the tanks apart so that I can start doing all the countersinking, etc. Also countersunk the flanges for the fuel tank fill caps, and I was nervous doing so, but realized that they're inside the tank and nobody sees them, so you just need to make sure that they're countersunk so that they can accept the dimples. I also took some time to redo some of the fluting for the ribs. I didn't want to fight those when I had proseal on the time and I was trying to get those ribs set. So this is me just doing some standard deburring and getting ready for getting everything dimpled and get ready for countersinking and whatnot. I do like this shot here momentarily where the rib seems to rotate but my hands aren't. Kind of shows the replication of the process and how repeated these actions are as you go through the build. I decided it was time to clean the shop up. There was metal shavings everywhere from all that deburring and dimpling and whatnot. Here I am starting to do the scuffing for the proseal. I screwed up the order a little bit. I dimpled a little bit and realized that I was putting myself into a world of hurt. If you take the time to do the scuffing first and the dimpling second, your quality of scuffing will be much, much higher and you'll get a better bond with the proseal because you're not trying to scuff on some three-dimensional surface. You have a nice flat plane to be able to do the scuffing on. The scuffing took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take, but turned out good. I was quite happy with it. Took the painter's tape just to protect the stuff that I didn't want to screw up with the scuffing and just to keep that all clad on there as much as I possibly could. Used a microfiber cloth and a whole bunch of acetone to clean everything up. When I was all said and done, you can see how dirty the cloth is as I go through the cleaning process. You don't want that stuff left behind. It'll just make the bond between the aluminum and the proseal that much worse. So clean up everything as much as you can. There's a gotcha here that T1005, every single one of those number 40 holes gets countersunk. It's the only thing that makes sense. There's no mention in the directions of how to do that, but make sure that you countersink all of those number 40 holes. And this is me just dimpling, nothing eventful here when dimpling the skins. Went easily and went on to start to assemble some of that T1005 part, that tank attach bracket, whatever you want to call it. But putting those together both left and right simultaneously. You got to study a little bit to make sure that you're doing it correctly for both the tanks and make sure that you're mirroring the right tank, but very doable, nothing terribly challenging there. So this is the reorganization of the shop. I wanted to make absolutely sure that I was ready for the proseal before I ordered it. I know that stuff has a shelf life, so this is me moving on to the aileron parts while I wait for the material to show up from Vans to start doing some of the tank proseal attachment stuff. So the ailerons thing, this is my bone to pick here. I think the aileron instructions were written by somebody else. The wording is different, the isometric diagrams are different. Usually left is left and top of the page is front of the plane. The isometrics on the ailerons are different, so you got to study very carefully to make sure that you're understanding exactly what they're asking you to do, and then even more carefully to make sure that you are mirroring correctly for what needs to happen with the right aileron compared to the left aileron. So take your time, study, be careful, be diligent, read it twice, etc., etc., and make sure that you're there. As you can see, I've elected not to prime the plane. However, there are certain specific instructions that say that you should prime these parts. So there moments ago, I primed everything that was specifically called out to be primed, let that cure overnight, and then kept going on the next day with the dry fit assembly. One thing that I will say is for this part where you are drilling through that tube of steel that is the counterweight for the aileron leading edge, it's really, really handy to have some sort of a punch to be able to set that center. The aluminum is not very good at holding up that center, especially when you're drilling through steel. It takes a while. So if you can't figure out and set that center with your drill bit quickly, you'll start to oversize those holes in the aluminum pretty quickly. So get yourself a center punch and make sure that you can set those centers and get those set up so that you can drill through it relatively quickly. What you're looking at is about 27.5 hours in the shop this week. I'm sure that next week we'll be back to my normal with work week going back and the holidays being behind us. So we'll see you again next week.